let's go over some of this. We have XYZ company has 2 service departments. We have the maintenance and we have the personnel, and the 2 are producing is printing and developing. All right. So all right, so we have maintenance and personnel, and then we have printing, and then we have developing. Okay, so the maintenance and the personnel are going to the printing and developing. The maintenance department bills other departments based on the number of machine hours. In addition, the personnel department bills the other departments based on the number of DL. So let's list them. We have maintenance, we have personnel, and then we have printing, and then we have developing, right? And then we have either it's based off of machine hours or it's based off of labor hours, right? Yeah, labor hours. All right, so the printing department uses 1,000 machine hours per year and 500 direct labor hours per year. So printing is 1,000 machine, direct labor 500. Says developing uses 3,000 machine, and we have 2,000 of direct labor. Okay. Maintenance uses 500 direct labor. Personnel uses 1,000 machine. Okay, direct costs for the maintenance are 15,000 and 36,000. Okay. So I have the list of the hours, the machine hours and the labor hours over there. We have personnel 1,000, printing 1,000, developing 3,000. Then we have the labor hours, maintenance of 500, printing of 500, and development of 2,000. Using the data above, compute the amount of services that would be allocated under the direct, the step, the reciprocal. All right. So let's look at the direct here. Let me just double check something here. Yeah. Direct. There's the direct. So let's take a look at the direct out of the direct one. So we want to allocate the maintenance. And what is maintenance based there off of? They base off machine hours, don't they? Okay? So remember, there is no relationship in the direct method between machine and printing. Is it printing? Yeah, no, personnel. I'm sorry, maintenance and personnel. There's no relationship. So I don't care about this 1,000 in personnel machine hours, and I don't care about this 500 labor hours for maintenance. I don't care about those in this case. All right?
How do you know that?
Huh?
How do you know that?
Because there's no relationship between maintenance and personnel.
How do you understand the relationship?
Because it's the direct method. When it's a direct method, remember what we talked about, the little chart that I drew, I think I had, say, maintenance
Yeah.
and personnel, you know? So there is no relationship between maintenance and personnel. The only relationship is their maintenance, print, and development, and then personnel, print, and development, okay? So when I'm determining what percentage of my maintenance money goes to print and developing. I don't care about the manufacturing hours that personnel deals with, okay? All I care about are the 1,000 in manufacturing hours for printing and the 3,000 in developing, okay? Does everybody understand that? All I care about is the 1,000 and the 3,000. So I'm going to base my percentages off of what? I'm going to say, well, I have 1,000 printing over my total, which is what? 4,000, right? So that's 25% goes to, so that means the maintenance to printing is the 25% of the total money that I have for maintenance. Okay? So if I go over here, basically what I'm going to say is we have printing, and that's 25%. So I'm going to take 25% of 36,000, I'm sorry, not 36, but 15,000, which gives me what? What's 1/4 of 15,000? 3750. Okay? So I have 3750 of my 15,000 is going to printing. Well, what's the percentage of the maintenance to the developing? I have the 3,000 hours over a total of 4,000 hours, which is 75%. So I'm going to take 75% of the 15,000, and that should give you the rest of it, which is what? 11,250. Does everybody see that? Okay. Now, give you a few minutes and figure out how am I going to split up the personnel. Do that on your own here. How would I first split up the 36,000 dollars in personnel? What do I look at to determine the percentage, and then how much is it? That's a little bit better. Not good at all. Huh? They don't have the lines, do they? I don't think that's going to help. So. All right, so how do I figure out, what do I look at to determine the percentage of the breakdown?
502,000.
Yeah, these two, 502,000, which is 2,500. So the personnel to printing would be 500 divided by 25, which is 20%, right?
What do you take it over the labor hours?
Huh?
What do you take
What
it
it says in the problem.
Yeah, because it says here, it says personnel department bills the other departments based on the number of direct labor hours. Okay? So, like maintenance did machine hours, Now personnel does labor hours. And so then we have personnel to developing, and that's the 2,000 divided by the 2,500, and that gives me 80%, right? So now, how do I figure it out? Well, I'm going to take the 20% of 36,000, which is what? 7,200, okay? And then for the developing, I'm going to take 80% of the 36,000, and that is what? 28,800, okay? So I have taken the money out of maintenance. I've taken it out of personnel. So I have no money in either one of those now, right? But now, where's the money? It is 10,950 in printing and 40,050 in developing. Okay? So does everybody understand that portion of it? Okay? All right. So let's go into a little bit more detail on this. The step allocation does the same thing, except for the first one is maintenance, and then it looks at all three. Looks at personnel, printing, and developing. So what you're going to do is add all three of these numbers and base your percentage on all three. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and do the reciprocal method, because I think that is where you guys are going to have the most problems with. Okay? Huh? I kind of hear it too. But, all right, so let's look at that. So we're still looking at the same numbers, but we're going to be doing what we call the reciprocal, or the, what is it called? Yeah, the reciprocal method. All right. Now, reciprocal means there's a relationship that's going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until we get it done. Okay? And I'm actually going to do this in Excel because it will be easier to do this in Excel. So let's take a look at that. All right, so we have the maintenance of 500, the printing of 500, the developing of 2,000. So if I look at everything, which we do in the reciprocal method, we have a total of direct labor hours of 3,000. The machine hours, we have 1,000, 1,000, and 3,000 for a total of 5,000, okay? So does everybody understand how we got the same information as before? All right? Now, we have machine, right? And then we have personnel. And then we have the printing. And then we have the developing. And we had $15,000 in machine. and we have $36,000 in personnel, right? And so our goal is to, and there was nothing in the other two. All right. So our goal is to get all this money that is in the machine over to printing, recognizing the relationship between machine to personnel and then from personnel back to machine. Okay? All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to allocate the personnel, the machine to the personnel. Well, what was machine maintenance based off of? It was based off of machine hours, right? So if I'm going to go ahead and put these percentages here, that the 1,000 divided by the total of 55,000 or 5,000. So let's go to this percentage. Is 20%, and the same thing with all these. Okay, so of the machine hours or the amount, 20% is going to personnel, 20% is going to printing, and then 60% goes to developing. All right, does everybody see how I did that? And then if we do the direct,
That was not the same as the other one.
because the other one, remember, there was no relationship between machine and personnel. And so on the direct, all we looked at was these two numbers right here, the 1,000 and the 3,000. And we only looked at the 500 and 2,000 because there was no relationship whatsoever between maintenance and personnel. Now in the reciprocal, there is a relationship between maintenance, personnel, maintenance printing, and maintenance developing. So we have to consider everything.
So where did you percentage
The personnel, it took the 1,000 machine hours that it uses and divided by the total number of machine hours for all departments. Okay? And so I'm going to do the same thing with the direct labor hours. I'm going to take the number of direct labor hours and divide it by the total that we have. Okay? And do that for this one and do that for this one. Okay, so does everybody see how I did that? So basically it's 17, 17, and 68, 67%, give or take. Okay? That's why I say use Excel on this problem, because we all know that that's 2/3, isn't it? 6.67 is 2/3. So, use Excel so it will actually get the most accurate number for you, all right? All right, so what am I going to do is I am going to take away this 15,000 from machine, because I'm going to spread it over the other two. And so how do I do that? I'm going to take that 15,000, multiply it by the 20%. And I get 3,000 that's going to personnel. And then I'm going to take the machine, the 15,000 times the 20% for printing. And then I'm going to take the 15,000 times the 60% for developing. Okay? Now, if I add these up, because I always like to double check my numbers, make sure everything's being allocated, that should be, those three numbers should equal the amount that I just took out of machine. Okay, does everybody see how I did that? Yes, no, maybe? So now in machine, I have no money, right? Well, in personnel, how much do I have? Yeah. Okay, so I have 39,000 in machine, I have 3,000 in printing, and 9,000 in developing. Okay, the 3,000 and 9,000 is not going to be touched. But now what I have to do is take that 39,000 and spread it between machine, printing, and developing based on the percentages that we got from above. Okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to subtract the 39,000, right? But then I'm going to take the 39,000 times my 16.67%. I'm going to take it times the 16.7 for that one. And then I'm going to take it times the 67.67% for developing. And again, these numbers should equal, why didn't they equal?
You missed the.
Oh, I did, yeah, I did, I went to the wrong one. Times. Okay, there we go. Okay, so those three numbers I just allocated under machine, printing, and developing needs to add up to be what I took out of personnel. Does everybody see how I did that? Yes, no, maybe? So now I have no money in personnel, do I? Right? Now I have 6,500 in machine. I have a total of 9,500, yeah, 9,500 in printing and 35,000 in developing. Okay? Now what do I have to do? I have to take that 65 and distribute to the other three, okay? So again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to subtract the 65 from machine, but then what we're going to do is take this times each. Well, that's the wrong formula. That's not going to work. Times this. Okay? So now what I've done is I took it out of machine again, okay? So there's no money in machine now, right? Multiply the 6,500 by the 20% allocated based on my machine hours to personnel, so that's 1,300, all right? And then I'm going to take the 65 times the 20 for the printing development, that gives me 1,300. And then I'm going to take the 65 times the 60%, and that gives me 3,900. Okay? So there's no machine money in machine. There's 1,300 in personnel. There is the total of these three numbers in printing and in developing. Okay? So now we got to go back the other way again. How about that? All right. So now we subtract the 1,300 from there, and then we multiply the 1,300 times the 16.67%. We multiply the 1,300 times the 16.67%, and then we multiply the 1,300 times the 66.67%. All right? So now there's no money in personnel. There's $217 in machine, and then we have a running total going in printing and developing. Okay? Now what do I do next? Yeah, now I got to go and do the machine. Now, if you've done these formulas, guess what? You can copy down the formulas. How about that? That does not make sense. Maybe I can't. Well, you know what? I know what I have to do. No. Yeah. Yeah, I gotta lock in the cell. Darn it, I didn't do that. I'm gonna lock in this cell right there. See, Excel is a very powerful tool. Okay? So if I add these together again, I should equal what I took out. Okay? And then I do it again. I'm going to lock these cells in. All right. So now, by you just keep on going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So now I'm going to subtract the 7 and then bring these down. And then this one should be the end. Okay. So now, if we sum everything up, I should have 11,069 in printing, 39,931 in developing. Okay? Eventually, what this is going to do, like it did here, the percentage is only 20%, right? Or, yeah, it's 16% going into here. 16 is rounded down, so there's 0. 16 is going here, so that's 0. And then this is 67%, which is, 1. Okay? So rounding up, rounding down, eventually you will get there. It just takes a little bit of time. You got to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Okay? Questions on that? Yes, no, maybe? What's really nice about this one, this is the reciprocal method, but these two first lines are the same that you would do for the step-down method. First 2 lines are the exact same thing because the first line recognizes the relationship between machine personnel, machine printing, machine developing, and then in the step down method, you just wouldn't go back. You would say, okay, in the step down method, it recognizes only the relationship from personnel to printing, personnel to developing. Now, remember, you would have to only determine it off of these two. So it'd be using the same percentages that we did in the direct method. Because there's only one relationship there. We're not going backwards, okay? Any questions on that one? But if you use Excel on this problem, it will help. Because let me tell you, if you would have to round, because especially with the 67 or 16.67%, that's going to go out forever, right? And so you're not going to get it as accurate if you don't use the wonderful world of Excel. Okay? Questions on that? How do you guys feel about those? Good, bad, indifferent? Better?
I did okay on math. I've already submitted my homework, but I could not come up with the answer on number 4. And I did it 3 different times, and I got the same answer all 3 times, but it's not one of the choices.
Okay. Let's see what has number 4. You know what? Now since you said that, I'm thinking number 4
I
has
come up with
issues.
310, 200. I just put I embedded an Excel sheet into that Word document while I worked it.
Yeah. Now since you said that, and I didn't go back and correct that, the answer is 310, 200. Yeah. The answer is 310, 200. It does not have the right
I just
answer.
couldn't figure out what I was doing right. I mean, I did it, and then I redid it, and I redid it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I remember that from last semester, and I forgot to go back and correct that.
We only have to do 3.
No, you have to do them all.
The only thing she said we didn't have to do was that one right down a little bit.
You didn't have to do the
That
problem
one right
with
there, number
this
5.
with the formula.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay. Questions on that? Anybody have any questions about the homework? I really, once you get the understanding of it, I don't think it's really that difficult in regards to, the details. Now, my my entrepreneurship class, they're having to do future values. They hate that. They absolutely hate that because they don't like using the formulas. The formulas is what's throwing them off.
Which value of what?
Huh?
Or they're using charts?
Yeah, they have formulas they have to use.
Yeah, do they have to get the charts?
They don't have the charts.
Give the charts.
They're
Okay,
using
Kevin,
formulas.
let's use the charts.
Well, this is an entrepreneurship class.
Oh,
This is not even an accounting class.
so they're gonna use the charts.
The
charts. Yeah, it's easier to use the charts.
Yes. So,
I use formulas when somebody else already.
Somebody else already figured it out. Wasn't just okay.
so any other questions about our homework assignment? Yes, no, maybe? Everybody good? Yay? Good. All right. So we have chapter 16 is today, which is cost allocation, joint products, and byproducts. Actually, you know what? I just started doing the books for this painting company, and he wants to use this kind of stuff, for his overhead. He was like, I don't, he goes, I know about what what my overhead is and where it goes. He goes, but I don't allocate it to jobs themselves. And I was like, well, we can take care of them. I said, I teach this thing. He was very happy. So we'll see. I'm actually going to put this into use. How about that? All right, so in chapter 16, we're going to be identifying the split-off point in a joint cost situation and distinguish between joint products from byproducts. We're going to explain why joint costs are allocated to individual products, allocate joint costs using 4 methods, identify situation where sales value and the split-off method is preferred when allocating joint costs. We're also going to be talking about explain why joint costs are irrelevant in the sell or process further decision, and account for byproducts using 2 methods. So some of the words that we're going to be using that have not been in our vocabulary in this class before. We have joint costs. What are joint costs? The cost of a product of a production process that yields multiple products simultaneously. So basically what it is you have, what do you have? Well, let's think of like a food processing plant. Okay? Huh? Possibly. Okay? I'm thinking of the corn. Huh? Like corn on the cob. The corn that, the corn that goes into products, when it goes into the plant, what is part of the corn? The husks, okay? So what basically what we're going to be doing today is talking about, where is the split off point or the joint cost, because yields multiple products simultaneously. So they could be using the main part of the corn for one product to make their main product, but have the leftovers, what's left over, as a secondary product. Okay? Like fertilizer or feed, animal feed. They might use some of the residual that they pull off, whatever they do, and to, put it out for the animals to feed on. Okay? I forgot where it was, but it was a perfect example. Now, since I thought about it, down in Florida, my cousin used to work for the Florida Natural, which is an orange juice making company. And so they would get the oranges in, right? But of course, they're not going to use the rind for their orange juice. You know, that comes off the orange, and they use what's inside as, you know, for their orange, right? For their orange juice. Well, they use the rind is taken and given to the farmers, or the farmers buy it as feed. And if it ferments out in the fields, when they dump it out in the fields, then the cows have a nice, you know, fun time, because it does ferment, yeah, you know, out there too. So, but yeah, so they, you know, that would be a byproduct, is the rinds, because that's not used in their actual production of the orange juice, you know, only the inside. So the joint cost, the cost of production process yields multiple products simultaneously. So they yield the orange juice, and they yield, you know, cow feed, you know. Split off point, the juncture in which in a joint production process where two or more products become separately identifiable. So the split off point would be when they take the rinds off of the oranges, and the middle part goes out to make the oranges, and then they grind up the rinds to sell it to the ranchers. And then severable costs, all costs incurred beyond the split off point that are assignable to each of the specific products identified at the split off point. Okay? All right. All right, so we have categories of the joint process outputs. Outputs with a positive sales value, and we have outputs with a 0 sales value. So why would we have outputs with a 0 sales value? I can't even talk today. Or it has no value, you know. So, you know, they might, you know, as a benefit to the ranchers, they actually might give it to the ranchers. We're like, we're going to have to throw this away. You might as well use it, you know, for something, you know. Any output with a positive sales value, or an output that enables a firm to avoid incurring costs. Sales value can be high or low, okay? We have our main product, output of a joint production process that yields one product with a high sales value compared to the sales value of the other outputs. So with the orange juice, it would be, you know, the orange juice would be the main one, the main product, you know, and the rinds, the cattle feed, would be just a secondary product. You know, that is just a result of the stuff that we use, okay? Then we have joint products, outputs of a joint production process that yields two or more products with a high sales value compared to sales values of any other outputs. And then byproducts, outputs of a joint production process that have low sales value compared to sales values of other outputs. Okay, so the rinds would probably be considered a byproduct because it really has very low sales value, you know, because they can't sell it to too many people. There's not a huge thing for it. They're just getting rid of it so that they don't have it anymore, you know? All right, so let's look at some examples. We have cocoa beans, and cocoa beans have the cocoa butter, several products at the split up point. So we have the actual cocoa beans is the product, and then the split off point, some of their products would be cocoa butter, cocoa powder, cocoa mixed drink mix, and tanning cream. Lambs, we would have the split off point, several products at the split off point would be lamb cuts, tripe, hinds, bones, and fat. Hogs would be bacon, ham, spare ribs, pork roast, and then raw milk would be cream, liquid, skim, and so forth. Now, extractive industries, so coal would be the main product, and the separable, the split off point, you can use it to make coke, gas, benzoyl, tar, and ammonia. Copper ore would be the main product, and it's made into copper, silver, lead, and zinc, and so forth. We have salt, hydrogen, chloride, and I don't know what, caustic soda, and so forth. And then we have semiconductor industry, the fabrication of silicon wafer chips, memory chips of different quality, as to capacity, speed, life expectancy, and temperature tolerance. So that kind of gives you an idea of what they, these are basically the raw material, what you start off with, and then you put it into production, and what can you do, from production? Where, because at one point it goes from like a whole turkey, and then you cut it up into different parts. Does everybody understand that? Yay, nay, hooray? All right. So before a manager is able to allocate joint costs, he or she must first look at the context for doing so. Joint costs must be allocated to individual products or services for several purposes. What are some of the several purposes? We have computation of inventoriable cost and cost of goods sold for financial accounting and tax reporting. So we need to know what is where, so we can account it correctly onto our books. Reimbursing companies that have some product reimbursed under cost plus contracts. And then regulating the rates or prices of one or more of the jointly produced products. Oh, and litigation or insurance settlement situations. All right, so we have two approaches to allocating joint costs. The first one is our market-based and physical measures. We have market-based, which allocates using market-derived data, okay? And we can use that based off sales value at split-off, net realizable value, or constant gross margin percentage. And then we have the physical measures, which allocate using tangible attributes of the product, such as pounds, gallons, barrels, and so forth. So first, we either have the market-based or the physical. Market is based on, dollar amount, and physical is based on the actual product itself. Okay. All right, so joint cost here, we're processing raw milk, and we have 110,000 gallons of raw milk. The joint processing cost would be $400,000, and then we have the split-off point. And then the split-off point takes that raw milk and develops into cream, and then to skim, liquid skim. Now, you notice something. What do you notice? Yeah, okay. At the split-off point, usually it's the amount after the split-off is not going to be the same amount that, is before the split-off. Why? Yeah, you lose some, right? Some may take more than, what you think would, produce. I mean, 110,000 raw milk does not say I'm going to have 110,000 total result, because some of it gets evaporated, some gets spilled, some, just basically it's used up, okay? So we have 110,000 gallons of raw milk and processing split-off point. The joint cost is $400,000. We have the beginning inventory here of 0. Production in gallons, we have 25 and 75. Sales in gallons is 20 and 30. So that means we have 5,000 and 4,500 left. And my selling price per gallon is $8 of cream, $4 in liquid skim.
At this point, it's still just all information that's given.
Yes, this is all just information given. And let me pull out the book here. Which page is it? 637. Okay. Now, sales value at the split off point. So we're going to be doing that part of it. The sales value at the split off method allocates joint costs to joint products produced during the accounting period on the basis of the relative total sales value at the split off point. So we're going to deal with the sales value, which was 8 and 4, right? 8 for cream and 4 for skim. This method uses the sales value of the entire production of the accounting period, not just the quantity sold. And so if we go back, it's going to be dealing with the entire production of 25,000 and 75,000, okay? And the sales value at split-off method follows the benefits received criteria of cost allocation. So let's take a look at here. We have 25,000 and 75,000. The 25 of the cream was at $8 a piece, right? So 25,000 times 8 gives me 200,000. And then 75,000 gallons of the skim is $4 a gallon. That's 300. So I'm going to have a total sales value of everything I produced this year, this quarter, or what have you, of 800,000. Now, the weight. Well, the weighting, of course, is just like we've done before, which we take the 2 divided by the total of 5. That gives me 40%. And then 3 divided by 5 gives me 60%. So that means that of the allocation, I'm going to take 40% of 400,000 and give it to cream. And I'm going to take 40% or 60% of the 400,000 and give it to the skim. Okay? So basically what they did was the sales, they took that 400,000 of joint costs and they split it off based on sales value. So they determine how much they're going to sell, what everything is worth, which is 500,000, and then a percentage of the 2 to the 5 is 40%. They take that 40% by the 400,000 of joint cost and allocate that to cream, 60% of the 400,000, and they allocate that to skim. Okay, does everybody see how we did that? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you multiply the 200,000 by the 40%. Get the 160.
No, the 200,000 is the value, how much I will sell it for.
Yeah, I'm saying you get the 160, multiply times 40%, right?
You take the 400,000 in joint costs times the 40%, and that's how I get the 160,000. Okay. We don't look at the 200, we only look at the 200,000 to determine what percentage of the 400,000 do I allocate to cream for cost. Okay?
Okay, so you gotta go back over here.
Yeah. All right. So then, what do? I gotta get the joint cost per gallon. How do I do that? I take the 160, which is part of the, the 400, this cream part of 400, and divide it by the number of gallons that I produced cream. So I have 160 divided by 25,000, and that gives me $6.40. And then I take the 240 divided by the 75,000 gallons, and I get $3.20. Okay? So basically what I'm doing is this 400,000 produced 25,000 gallons of cream, 75,000 gallons of skim. And so now I'm getting a cost per gallon of each one. Okay? Does everybody see that? Yes, no, maybe. Okay. So now, That's the allocation of joint costs. That's in the top part. So in the bottom part, we have the product line income statement using sales value and split off method. Okay? So how do we do that? Well, how much did I sell of each? The 20 and the 30. Okay, that was given at the very beginning. We sold 20,000 gallons of cream, 30,000 gallons of skim. And my sales price for each one was 8 and 4. So I take the 20 times 8. I brought in $160,000 for cream. I brought in $120,000 for skim, which is the 30 times the 4. Okay? So my total income right now is 280, right?
Where'd you get the 30,000? I thought it was 75.
That's how much I produced was 75. But if you look in your information, it says that we sold 30,000. So we have 30,000 sold, and then that means we have 45 left in inventory, right? You see where that's at? Okay. Well, then what do? I have the production costs. Well, we had 160,000 that goes to cream, 240,000 that goes to liquid skim. The cost of, then we have deducted in the ending inventory. Well, what does it say our ending inventory was? 5,000 and 45,000. So that's how I come up with this. Take the 5,000 times the $6.40. Take the 45,000 times the 320. My ending inventory is 32,144. So what does that mean for my cost of goods sold? Take the 160 minus 32. That's how I get the 128. 24 minus 144. That's how I get the $96. So my gross margin. How do I figure out gross margin? Anybody? What is the difference? Gross margin is the difference between, what my revenue and my costs. So I'm going to take the 160 minus the 128. That gives me 32,000 for my gross margin for cream. For liquid skim, I have 120 as income. My cost that I allocated was to cost of goods sold is 96. So my gross margin is 24,000. Now, percentage of gross margin percentage. How do I do that? I take the, how do they do that? 32 plus 160 divided by 160. Oh, it's 32 divided by 160. I can't see that that's a division. So they take this divided by 160, 24 divided by 240, and they get 20%.
No.
Huh?
It's 32 divided by 160 revenue and 24 divided by 120 revenue.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, it's divided by revenue. So we take the, so we got 20% straight across. So that's pretty decent. 20%. Okay. All right, so any questions on that? So basically what we're doing is we're allocating the joint costs that we have based on the sales value of the products themselves. All right. So now we have the physical measure method. The physical measure method allocates joint costs to joint products produced during the accounting period on the basis of a comparable physical measure such as relative weight, quantity, or volume at the split-off point. Okay? So let's look at these numbers here. All right, so before we dealt with what? Money, right? Now we're going to deal with the actual amount that we produced. So we had a total production of 25,000 and 75,000. which of course equals 100,000. So cream was 25% of the production, and liquid skim was 75% of the production. Same concept. We take the 400,000 times the percentage of the total production. So 400,000 times 1/4% is $4, and 75% of 400,000. I'm sorry, 25% of 400,000 is 100. 75% of 400,000 is 200. Okay, and then we take the 100, divide by the number of gallons produced. 300 divided by the number of gallons produced. So this time they actually come out even at $4 a piece. That's pretty darn good, right? Then we do the same thing as before in the second part. We have 20,000 gallons, 30,000 that we sold, 160 and 120, so total sales of 280. We have the production cost. Basically, you're just going to bring these numbers down, okay? That's the beginning of the inventory. And then the ending inventory, what do? I have 5,000 gallons of cream. I take that times the $4 that I got in part A. And then I have 45,000 gallons of skim. So I take that times the $4. Take the difference between what I did minus what I still have. That gives me my cost of goods sold of 80,000 and 120. Well, then I take the revenues minus the cost of goods sold. That gives me my gross margin. And then the gross margin divided by my revenues give me the gross margin percentage. So basically what happens with skim, I'm breaking even. Okay? Based on the physical measures, I'm breaking even. By sales dollars, I got a 20% gross margin, don't I? Okay? All right, any questions on those? All right. Net realizable value method. It allocates joint costs to joint products produced during the accounting period on the basis of relative net realizable value. The NRV equals sales, the final sales value minus separable costs. In many cases, products are processed beyond the split-off point to bring them to a marketable form or to increase their value above their selling price at the split-off point. So basically what that means is that we have the split-off point, you know, and then we actually do things to both products that we split off. Say, you know, one is, I don't know, orange juice, and maybe we do something to the rinds and make it into something else besides carotene. Okay? So what we're talking about here is, you know, we have extra costs for that too. Okay? Is it justifiable? So here we have the raw milk. We're still going to be dealing with the raw milk. And we have the joint cost of 40,000. We're going to have the split off point where we take that 110,000 gallons of raw milk, make it into 25,000 gallons of cream and 75,000 gallons of liquid milk or liquid skim. Then the cream we're going to further process. That cost us $280,000. And by further processing the cream, the 25,000 gallons of cream will become 20,000 gallons of buttercream. And it costs us $280,000 to do that. Okay? The liquid skim, we started off with 75,000 gallons of that. And we further process it. It cost us $520,000, but by spending that, we produced 50,000 gallons of condensed milk. Okay? So we have a split off point, and then further processing results in 2 new products. All right. So we have to allocate all those costs. We have the 400,000 joint costs, the 280,000 that resulted to get our buttercream, and then the 520,000 that we needed to spend in order to get the condensed milk. Okay? We had no beginning inventory. We had production of 25, 75, 20, and 50. Transferred to further processing. So basically what this means is we transferred these out to make these. And so my ending inventory, my sales gallons were 12,000 of buttercream and condensed milk of 45,000. And then, so that means my ending inventory is 8 and 5. Okay? We don't have anything here because why? We transferred it out to make this stuff. Okay? Now, and we also, I forgot to mention this, the selling price, if we stopped with just cream and liquid skim, that was 8 and 4 like it was before, right? But if we keep on going, our selling price per gallon of buttercream is $25,000 and condensed milk is $22. Okay? So same concept as before. $25 per gallon. We have 20,000 gallons of buttercream. So that's 500,000. 500,000 of condensed milk equals $22 per gallon. Multiply those two numbers, I have 1.1 million. So I have a total possible revenue of 1.6 million. And then we have to allocate the extra cost. We have 280 and 520. And so the net realizable value at the split off point is 220 and 580. How did I get that? I just took the difference between what I would bring in, the 500,000 minus the separable costs, which is the cost that I had to get to that point. And that gave me 220,000. So same concept as before. I take the 220, what percentage of the total it is. So 220 divided by 800 gives me 2.275. 580 divided by 800 gives me 0.725. Okay? So that's the weight it holds. So I take those two percentages, multiply it by that 400,000 that we spent before we even started, right? Okay? And then that's what I allocate based on the weight it holds. 400,000 times 0.275 gives me 110,000. 400,000 times 0.725 gives me 290,000. Okay? So now I have two costs. What do I have? I have the 280, or the net realizable value at the split off point of 220 and the 110,000. All right, but actually I'm going to take this cost because that's what I actually cost is 280 plus the 110, that gives me 390. So that's my total cost for buttercream is 290 or 390. I'm sorry, 390. 390 divided by the number of gallons of 20,000 gallons. That's how I get the $19.50. Okay, so I took the 280, which is the split off cost, and then its weighted average or weighted value for the separable cost. I have a total of 390 cost, right? Divided that by the number of gallons I produced of buttercream, and that gives me $19.50. Does everybody see how we did that? Yes or no? Okay. Same concept. I take the 520 of separable cost plus its portion of the 400,000, which is 290. Add those two together, divide it by the number of gallons of the condensed milk, which is 50,000, and that's how I get the $16.20. Does everybody see how I got those two numbers? Okay. All right. So what did I sell that day? Of this stuff. Well, I sold 12,000 of the buttercream, I sold 45,000 of the condensed milk. And so the cost or the price was $25.22. So I'm going to take that 12,000 times 25. That's how I get the 300. 990 is the result of 45,000 times 22. So our total income was 1.29 million. That's pretty darn good. Okay. So then I just bring down the joint cost. The first thing I'm going to do is bring down the joint cost, right? And then the separable cost. So we have production cost of 390, which is what we got here, right? But then I have all the costs together, and then I have what my ending inventory is. And how do I do that? Well, I have 8,000 gallons left in inventory, right? That's the 20 minus 12 gives me 8,000. I take the 8,000 times the 1950, and that's how I get my ending inventory of 156. I take the, how many gallons? We had 50, we sold 45. We have 5,000 gallons left of the condensed milk. Multiply that by 1622, and that's how I get the 81,000. So then I take the 300,000 minus the 512, I'm sorry, take 390 minus 156, that gives you 234. And then 300 minus 234 gives me a profit of 66,000. Okay? Any questions on that? So based on this information, we have a gross percentage, a margin percentage of 23% for buttercream, 26.4% for condensed milk. Okay? So basically what we're doing is just allocating costs. That's all we're doing. So, any questions about that one, the net realizable value? So the sales is based off of sales. The net realizable value is based off of units. Okay? All right, constant gross margin NRV method. The constant gross margin method, the constant gross margin percentage NRV method allocates joint costs to joint products produced during the accounting period in such a way that each individual product achieves an identical gross margin percentage. The method works backwards and the overall gross margin is computed first. So we're going backwards this time. Joint costs are calculated as a residual amount by subtracting the separable costs and the gross margin from the final sales value. All right. So the constant gross margin percentage NRV method can be broken down in 3 steps. The first one is compute the overall gross margin percentage. The second step is to compute the total production cost for each product. And the third step is to compute the allocated joint costs. So how do we do that? So we have 3 steps. The first step we have, we're dealing with all the condensed milk, and what was the other one? Condensed milk and buttercream. Okay. That's right there, too. Okay. All right. See, tax season needs some things so I can actually sleep, you know? Oh, all right. So, first of all, how do we do? The first thing we're going to do is determine what my gross margin is. Well, what do we know? We know how many units we sold, right? And so we can figure out the total revenues. So 20,000 times 25 gallons, that gives me 100, and then the 50 gallons times the $22 per gallon gives me 1.6 million. My joint and separable costs, well, that was given to us too, right? 400,000 is the joint cost. The separable cost for buttercream is 280. The separable cost for condensed milk is 520. So I have a total cost of 1.2 million. The difference between that is my gross margin, right? So I have 1.6 minus 1.2 gives me 400,000. Well, 400 divided by 16, or 1.6 million gives me 25%. So that's my gross margin. So that's the first thing you've got to do is determine what your gross margin is. You've got all the costs, you just, we're not breaking it up.
Where'd you get the 1.6 million?
You take 20,000 times 25. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 50. Okay, there's that. And then you take the 50,000 times the 22. And there's your 1.1 million.
How do you know that? So,
It's what we know we sold
Yeah.
and how much we sold it for.
oh,
If you go back one more page, okay, it's right there. You sold it for, you sold 12, that's the Indian part. You sold 20,000 right here, so that's production. Are we taking production numbers?
No, we're taking it down now.
No, we're taking production.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're taking production numbers. So, yeah, we're taking actual production. So, final sales value of total production during the accounting period. Okay, so yeah, we take total production during the accounting period, total cost during the accounting period.
this is $22 per gallon, $25.
Yeah. So if you look down here, 25 and 22.
Okay.
Okay. So this is the first thing we got to find is the gross margin for if we sold everything that we produced. Okay.
That was my question, is what happened in the inventory?
Yeah.
But we're using total production, not.
Yeah. We're backing into all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Okay. So in this particular gross margin NRV, first thing we do is find the gross margin for everything that we produced. All right. So we take the number of gallons we produced for buttercream times the amount that we're going to get, and then for condensed milk times the amount we're going to get. Okay. Final sales value of total production during accounting period. Well, that would be the same thing. We did that here, didn't we? We have 500,000, which is 20,000 times 25. 1.1 million, which is 50,000 times 22. That's how I got the 1.6 million. Deduct the gross margin. And so 25% of the 500,000 and the 1.1 million is 125 and 275. So my total production cost has to be 375 and 825. Okay? Does everybody understand that particularly? Because gross margin is what? That's my profit, isn't it? Okay? And so I'm going, okay, what is my total production cost? Well then, what does that mean? I know what my separable costs are. My total production costs are 375. I know my separable costs are 280. So what does that mean in my joint cost? I take the 375 minus 280, that's how I get the 95. Take the 825 minus the 520, and that's how I get the 305. Those two numbers have to equal your joint costs. Okay? So we're backing in. Before, what did we do? We allocated based on sales, or we based on units, and it got a percentage of each, and we applied that to, our separable costs, and that's how we allocated the 400,000. Here, we're backing into it. We're going, we got the separable costs, now I need the joint costs. Okay? All right, based on the gross margin. So now, then we do basically the same thing as before. What do? We have revenues of 300 and 990. That's what we actually show this period. We have joint costs of 95,000 and 280, which is 375, 825 for condensed milk. So we bring that down from the above. Okay. Then, how do we figure out the $18.75 per gallon? Anybody want to take a guess? Same concept as before. That joint, the total production cost of $3.75 is the result of how many gallons?
20,000.
Yeah. So we're going to take that $3.75 divided by the 20,000, and that's how I get the $18.75 per gallon. Okay. Same thing with the condensed milk. I have a total cost of $8.25, don't I? And how much did I produce as a result of the $8.25? I produced 50,000 gallons. So I take the $8.25 divided by 50, and I get which one is that? $16.50 per gallon. Okay, and that's how I get my ending inventory. Take my ending inventory of buttercream, multiply it by 1875. My ending inventory of condensed milk, multiply that by 1650, and then I can get my gross margin, which will match this gross margin, should match this up here. The gross margin percentage, not the gross margin itself. Okay? So what we're doing is we're determining what we want our gross margin to be and forcing the numbers to match that. That's basically what we're doing. Okay? Does everybody see what we did? Yes, no, maybe.
Where did you get the 300,000 and 990,000?
Where are you seeing that?
First margin percentage.
Let's see, 300,000.
926.
By 26. So 75,000 divided by 300,000. Where's that? 300,000.
The 75,000.
Okay, never mind. I
is
see it.
revenue.
I see it. It's
Okay.
over there. Okay,
Yeah.
I got it.
75 is here, divided by
I got it.
325.
I'm sick. I'm not with it. So.
That's okay. All right. So once you do all this, figuring here, this number, you'll calculate the gross margin, but if it does not equal what you calculated up here, you've got something wrong. Okay? Because what we're doing is we're forcing the numbers to be what we want as the gross margin. Does everybody see how we did that? Yes, no, maybe? All right, so how do we choose an allocation method? If selling price at split off is available, the sales value at split off method is preferred even if further processing done. Why do we want to do that? Best measure of benefits received, independent of further processing decisions, and common allocation base and simplicity. It's the easiest one to do, right? And so if we know what the selling price of the split off is, that's the one we want to do. If selling price is not available, the NRV method is the best alternative. Despite this, some firms choose not to allocate costs at all. Ready? That's okay. All right. So if you know the selling price, that's the one you want to do. Now, sell or process further. So, like in before, what did we have? We had raw milk that we made into cream and liquid skim, right? And so in our example, what did we do? They made a decision to process further, incurred those costs, which resulted in more income, And so we have to make that decision. Is it worth it to do that? Should we just stop at one certain point, or can we go on to make it a different product than what we have? So in Chapter 11, we introduced the concept of relative revenues, which are expected future revenues that differ among alternative course of actions. Relevant costs, which are expected future costs that differ among alternative courses of action. And these concepts can be applied to decisions whether a joint product or main product should be sold at the split off or processed further. In a sell or process further, joint costs are irrelevant. Why are they irrelevant here? You know what I'm saying? Why would joint cost be, doesn't matter?
They've already been allocated.
Huh?
Because they've already been allocated.
It means we're going to be basically, no matter what we choose, whether to sell it at the split off point or process further, we're still going to have those costs, right? So in our analysis of whether we should process further, those joint costs are going to be incurred no matter what we decide to do. So who cares about it, right? We don't care about the joint costs because we're going to be incurring those costs no matter what, okay? Joint products have been produced and a prospective decision must be made to sell immediately or process further and sell later. So basically what that means is, you know, no matter what, I got those joint costs, I'm going to incur them. Who cares, right? Joint costs are sunk costs. Anybody remember what sunk costs are? Basically means, you know, I've incurred them no matter what. It's there. Okay. You know, joint costs are costs that I'm going to incur no matter what. So those are sunk costs. Don't assume all separable costs and joint cost allocations are always incremental costs. Some separable costs may be fixed costs, and separable costs need to be evaluated from relevance individually. Okay. Some other issues we need to consider is the potential conflict between cost concept used for decision making and cost concept used for evaluating the performance of managers often arise when sell or process further decisions are being made. So have you noticed the trends in all our evaluations? You know, doing it one way will affect something different, and so we have to keep, you know, that in mind in regards to one way might not benefit the managers and one way might benefit the managers, right? You know, so we still have that theme throughout the semester. Firms should be wary of using the full cost of a joint product as the basis for making pricing decisions. Potential lack of cause and effect relationship. Okay. So there are two methods for accounting for byproducts. We have the production and the sales method. The production method recognizes byproducts inventory as it is created and sales and costs at the time of the sale. Sales method recognizes no byproduct inventory and recognizes only sales at the time of the sale. Byproduct costs are not tracked separately. So which one would be easiest? Sales method, all right? So basically, byproducts under the sales method, you know, they're just there and their costs are allocated to the product itself. You know, the byproduct is not, there's no costs. So, you know, on their books, it would basically be pure profit, you know? Whereas production method, we do recognize, we allocate some of the costs of production to the byproducts. So, we have joint cost of timber. We're talking about timber now. Joint cost of $250. We have the split off point. We have 50,000 board feet of fine grade lumber. And then of course we have the wood chips. We have 400,000 cubic feet of wood chips because, you know, saw wood and what happens? You know, all the dust and chips and come on. So that would be a byproduct. So if we do the production method, we have revenues of 40,000 board feet at $6 per board foot. Okay, we sold that. That's what we sold. Under the production method, we recognize both of those, both on the production and the sales method. The byproduct, we don't recognize under the production, which is 1,200 cubic feet of wood chips. But under sales method, we do. okay? So we have cost of goods sold, we have manufacturing cost, 250 and 250, so it's the same for both. If we, under the production method, we would back out what we would make if we sold all 4,000 cubic feet at $1. So manufacturing costs would be 246 and 250. Okay? So let's review why is that. Why is that? Think about it for a second. If I don't say, if I just throw that byproduct away, kind of think like raising a building. When we talked about the cost of land, and we, we said, okay, if we have a building and we sell the building for scrap, what do we do to the cost of land? We reduced it by what we sold the building for, right? Okay, and so same concept here. Under the production method, what I have is I have $250,000 worth of costs, but I'm going to take that byproduct and I'm going to sell it. So in reality, I'm going to get $4,000 back of those costs. And so my total cost under the production method is 246. Compared to their sales method, it's 250. Because let's look back here. If you look here, remember what did we say earlier? Production method recognizes byproducts inventory as it's created and sales cost at the time of the sale. Sales method recognizes no byproduct inventory and recognizes only sales at the time of sales. We don't track it. So basically, what I'm doing is I'm reducing my cost because why? I get that extra money because I'm taking what I left over and selling it. So my cost is
Where's it? Where you come up with 250 in manufacturing costs?
That's given to us.
Those are the employees.
That's just given information.
Yeah, that's fine. I was looking for it.
Yeah. It's just given information.
Is that the joint costs?
Huh? Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Okay. Yeah, that's joint costs. All right, so my net manufacturing cost for the production method, backing out the revenue I would receive from the byproducts is 246. And then sales method, I don't care about the byproducts, so it's 250. Deduct main inventory or main product inventory. So how did I do that? How did I get the 49,200? I have, how much do we have left over? We have 10,000. We sold 40,000. We had a total of 50,000. So we took the 10,000 that's left over, divided by 50,000, and multiplied by net manufacturing income. So net manufacturing costs. So I'm going to take total production minus my sale and divided by total production. Okay? And so then I'm going to take that number and multiply it by the 246,000. Okay? And that's how I get this number right here for my ending inventory. Does everybody see how I did that? And then the same concept up here, but instead of 246, I'm going to use 250. That's how I get the 250. So my gross margin is going to be 196.8, 200,000. I'm sorry, my cost of goods sold.
They know if you sold 5,000.
Hmm?
Where does it say you sold 5,000?
Because here the revenues, it said we sold 40,000 board feet, and I made 50,000 board feet. If you look on the screen before.
Yeah, where it says, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we had 50,000,
Yeah.
and according to the information provided, we sold 40,000 of it.
Okay.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is take that 10 divided by 50 and then multiply it by the net manufacturing costs. And then that's how I get the 49.2. Subtract that from the 246, I get 196.8. And then take that from my revenues, and that's how I get the 43.2. And then 43.2 divided by 240 gives me the 18%. But remember, the other one, what do we have to do? Total revenues. So I'm going to take the 41 divided by the 241, and I get 17%. Okay? Any questions? Now, inventoriable costs, what do we have? We have the 49.2. Under the production method, we're going to have 49.2 of the fine lumber, but we're also going to have the byproducts to 28 because we started off with 4,000, we sold 1,200, and so we're going to take the 28 times $1, and that's 28. But under the sales method, we only have the 50,000.
But didn't we already write off the total cost of the byproduct? We accounted for the total revenue, even though we haven't sold it. How can we do that? We subtracted the 4,000, like we sold all 4,000, but we didn't. We only sold 1,200.
Yeah, but we don't recognize the 1,200.
Okay, so I don't understand.
Yeah, I understand why you don't understand. 4,000. I have to think about that, why we did that. And I'm not sure. Let me think about that and get back to you on that one, because I'm not sure about that one. Yeah. Because we backed out the full 4,000.
Then we pick up the 2,800 at the bottom in our inventory. But
Well-
we didn't pick up the 2,800 in our, I mean, it looks like we're accounting for it twice.
The 4,000 is taken away from the total costs.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's really what we're trying to sell it for.
Yeah. I have to think about that. I'm not sure. So let me think about that and then get back to you on that one. All right. All right, the production method is consistent with the matching principles and it's the preferred method. So match the production method, which was where? We only had the revenues for the main product. The production method recognizes the byproduct inventory in the accounting period in which it is produced and simultaneously reduces the cost of manufacturing the main or joint products, thereby better matching revenues and expenses from selling the main product. So we're backing out the money that we get from the byproduct. That's reducing our total costs. And so, but the inventory, why are we accounting for the inventory? That's where we're having problems. The sales method is simpler, but allows a firm to manage report earnings by timing the sale of the byproducts. Because on the production method, we don't recognize the sale. So, until later. All right, I'm gonna have to think about that. All right, some of the terms, remember, make sure you know these terms for the test and so forth. So, all right, so let's take a look at the homework for this week. So we have 16, 18 in the book. And so you're doing the net realizable method. For that, Starbucks Company is one of the world's leading corn refiners. It produces two joint products, corn syrup and cornstarch, using a common production process. In July 2014, bless you, Steinbeck, I said Starbucks. Steinbeck reported the following production and sales price information. Allocate the $329,000 in joint costs using the NRV method. So what does that mean you're going to be doing? Go back to our PowerPoint. So you're going to be doing what we got on slide 18, or I'm sorry, slide 19. 18 and 19 is the realizable value.
That we're, are we going to do both?
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, they do 18 for you. That's what that is right there, the separable cost and the joint cost.
Yeah, I see.
Okay, so if you look on your book, which one? What page is that on?
Page 50, 53.
Yeah, 640. 640. Yeah,
Oh,
641. So 641 is what you will be doing for problem 6 or 16, 18, 16, 19, right? 16, 18. Yeah. Okay. So follow that one on page 641. That will help you do the homework assignment for 640 or 16, 18. Okay. Now the other one is just the questions below. We have the Bryant Corporation manufactured two products out of joint process, Scout and Android. The joint costs incurred are $400,000 for a standard production run that generates 70,000 pounds of Scout and 30,000 of Android. Scout sells for $9. Android sells for $7. If there were no additional processing costs occurred after the split-off point, there are not a joint cost allocated. So basically, physical quantity basis and sales value split off. So physical quantity basis, physical measures example would be what you would look at there. And then the sales split off one. Where's the sales split off? Right there. It's this one. So the sales split off one would be the one that's on page 638. And physical measures method is the one that's on 639. Okay. All right. Any questions on those? I'll see what I can do about, I thought there was some Excel spreadsheets already put together, but there's not. So I'm going to look into that and see what I can do if I can post that for you, okay? All right. Any questions? How you guys feeling? It's not too bad, is it? So let's look and see what else we have left to do in this class. All right, so this is session 13. Next week, we're going to be doing capital investments. The following week is our review. And then the final,
what was that paper due for?
last week of class. So I think, let's see.
You said last Friday, no, usually 10.
3rd.
Third.
So the extraordinary circumstances is due by the 3rd. Okay? So how's that going?
Halfway.
Halfway? What do you think so far?
She goes off on a lot of tangents that I really don't care about.
Mhm.
She went into a whole history of the South, and then she went into another whole thing about Southern words and Southern talking people, and she doesn't stay on point very well.
Too much fluff.
Too much fluff?
She's got a lot of fluff in there.
That's
Uh-huh.
what I find about.
Well, if you notice, remember that was one of the complaints, I think last year when the class did this. That was one of the big complaints about the book.
I like how she's paralleling her story to Bernie's story and how she came up and how he came up.
Bernie Madoff?
Yeah, the original Bernie and this that started the company.
Oh, okay. The guy, not Bernie Madoff.
No, that Bernie in the story.
Okay.
And she kind of starts with his beginnings and she's working her way up through the years, and at the same time she's going through hers and working her way up to kind of tell how they all got where they ended up.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, she goes off into these tangents on this total nonsense.
Total
Yeah, there's no
nonsense.
reason, you can't see why you couldn't just say, this is what happened.
Yeah.
We don't need all this extra backstory that means nothing to what happened.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Anybody else?
Haven't read it yet.
Haven't read it? What about you
I'm gonna
guys?
find it.
You haven't found it yet?
I haven't had a chance to look.
Okay. Well, I do have one copy of it, so I'll bring that, but I need the copy back. So whoever borrows it from me needs to give it back to me.
Well, I
Okay?
know I can get it online, I just haven't read it yet.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other questions? So we're almost done, so that's great, right? All right. So make sure you get your homework in. If you have any questions about the homework, let me know, and then we can go from there.